This video is about the questions from several friends regarding the interpretation of Keith Hayward's Infantilised. Below are our responses, for reference only. Question 1. I'd like to ask, is child a modern concept? It seems that in pre-17th century Europe, there wasn't really a concept of childhood, and child labor and apprenticeship systems were widespread. Was it the rise of the modern family that led to the emergence of this idea? Similarly, is childhood a socially constructed concept? Response. The word child has existed since ancient times, and people in traditional societies likely didn't expect an 8-year-old to behave and act like an adult. However, the term teenager is a distinctly modern invention, less than 100 years old. It seems to have gained popularity in mass media around the 1940s. In the past, it was completely normal for 12-year-olds to join the labor force, whether in farming or factories. They were considered an essential part of the workforce. It was also typical for people to leave home and start their own families by age 16, and a woman unmarried at 18 might already be seen as an old maid. The underlying logic is that before mechanization, and especially before fossil fuels became widespread, physical labor was indispensable. Most households couldn't survive on just the father's income. So as long as children were physically capable of working, they had to contribute. And once seen as contributors to labor, they naturally had the desire, and social expectation, to build a life of their own. Of course, things have now changed completely. Physical labor is no longer as common, families are smaller with fewer children, and mothers often work and earn income as well. In this situation, one parent's income can support the whole family, so children no longer need to work. Besides, there isn't much for them to do. Basic physical labor is increasingly devalued, and it's more worthwhile to invest time in learning complex skills. With industrialization, nations needed educated, skilled, disciplined workers capable of handling complex tasks, which led to the birth of public schooling systems. Children could now focus entirely on education rather than work. This is how the teenager emerged. Originally referring to 12 to 20-year-olds who were institutionally retained in schools, the definition has since expanded to include anyone not yet earning a salary or entering the workforce. Their sole responsibility is to study and prepare for employment, though some might argue that this period of preparation has gotten a bit too long. Question 2. Today's adults have lower testosterone than previous generations, show less aggression, and are more reluctant to take responsibility. But I wonder, is that necessarily a bad thing? Could infantilisation, beneath the surface, actually offer hidden benefits, for individuals or even for human society as a whole? In an age of such material abundance, could infantilisation actually be normal? Could it be the way things should be, or even inevitably must be? Response. I feel the same way. There are two obvious benefits to extended neoteny: the retention of youthful traits. First, it allows for a longer learning period, which may help preserve curiosity and maintain high neuroplasticity over time. Second, because such individuals tend to be less aggressive and more dependent, cooperation between people becomes easier. Both of these traits align with the direction of modernization. What's more, infantilized individuals often report being genuinely happier. The core problem of infantilization is the growing gap between rights and responsibilities. People are enjoying more and more rights, while delaying, or even rejecting, the duties and obligations that should come with them. This disconnect inevitably creates issues, and now it's become a societal norm. Someone who lives comfortably, without having to generate wealth or face real-world trade-offs, lacks the practical grounding that responsibility brings. But such a person might still have rich emotional responses, which leads them to develop a wish list for how the world should be. Not only do they demand more rights for themselves, but they also expect the world to reorganize itself to fit their desires, often with self-righteous fervor. This is how you end up with, say, extreme environmental activists. People who understand that protecting the environment is good, and carbon dioxide is bad, but don't grasp the importance of economic growth. And their chosen method for pursuing change isn't to roll up their sleeves and build something. It's to protest, or arguably, to tantrum. If you don't listen to us, we'll vandalize a priceless painting in a museum. Of course, the painting has nothing to do with climate change. It's just a symbolic way to grab the attention of adults by emotionally provoking them. Cultural narcissism and victimhood mentality often operate in the same way. Yes, it's absurd. But even so, it's still better than a world where teenagers can't afford education and are forced into survival mode from a young age. So in that sense, maybe this side effect is worth it. The real question is what comes next. Will infantilization destabilize nations? Will it reduce a population's competitiveness? Will it leave us unprepared for future challenges? These are all very real concerns. Question 3. You believe that information should be free and shared, and that people should cooperate. But in reality, especially in the workplace, there is competition, and some information must be kept confidential to prevent leaks. When you're leading a team and trying to help them achieve real gains, it often becomes a zero-sum game. How do you reconcile this contradiction? Response. I don't know the specifics of your situation, but from a broader perspective, we can look at how California, especially Silicon Valley, strikes a balance between encouraging information sharing and protecting trade secrets. Take OpenAI as an example. It's currently the most powerful AI company in the world and has trained a generation of top-tier AI researchers. Many of them, including Chief Scientist Ilya Sutskever and CTO Mira Murati, have left the company in the past year to start their own ventures or join competitors. Given how fierce AI competition is and how valuable OpenAI's proprietary technology is, isn't this a huge threat to the company? What can OpenAI do in response? First, Section 16600 of the California Business and Professions Code strictly prohibits non-compete agreements between employers and employees. That means workers can switch jobs freely, even to direct competitors, and employers cannot stop them. This law is so strict that even if a non-compete was signed in another U.S. state or abroad, it's still invalid in California. In fact, in 2024, a new rule was added requiring employers to notify all current and former employees in writing that any previously signed non-competes are void. This legal foundation supports the innovation ecosystem in Silicon Valley. Think of it like a professional sports league where star players are free to transfer teams. A Silicon Valley engineer isn't just working for one company. They're part of a broader innovation community. While they may switch employers, they're unlikely to leave the valley. The U.S. federal government has tried to ban non-competes nationwide as of 2024, though the effort hasn't fully succeeded. Some states still resist. In China, the law limits non-compete clauses to 3 types: senior managers, senior technical personnel, and those with confidentiality obligations. But in practice, many companies require all employees to sign them. That shows just how far ahead California's approach is. But what if an OpenAI employee jumps ship and takes sensitive information to a rival? Wouldn't that severely harm the company? Not necessarily. California's Uniform Trade Secrets Act, CUTSA, prohibits former employees from using trade secrets from their previous employer. For something to qualify as a trade secret, it must meet 3 criteria. It's not publicly known. It has actual or potential economic value due to its secrecy. Most importantly, the company must have taken reasonable steps to protect it. The most common and effective protection is a confidentiality agreement, NDA. If you've signed one that applies to specific technology, you can't take that technology with you. Even without an NDA, if access to the information was restricted, e.g. only a few employees knew about it, and it was labeled confidential, that may still qualify, though it's harder to defend in court. So in summary, you're free to leave and work on new projects, and you can use general skills or knowledge you acquired at OpenAI, but you cannot take or reuse specific trade secrets. Of course, gray areas exist. For example, if OpenAI's secret was an algorithm, and you use a similar problem-solving idea to build a different algorithm elsewhere, is that theft? It's hard to say. In practice, trade secret lawsuits in Silicon Valley are relatively rare, just a few hundred a year. Even when violations are obvious, many companies choose not to sue because litigation can damage their reputation, hurt recruitment, and sour future partnerships. Besides, damages are hard to quantify, and winning a lawsuit may not undo the loss. The cultural norm in Silicon Valley is to trust the honest and ignore the dishonest. Information sharing is absolute. Secrecy is relative. And I believe that's the ideal setup for innovation. Within a company, it's even less productive to create internal silos or secretive competition between departments. That only breeds friction and inefficiency. I once asked an OpenAI researcher directly, "What is your company's moat? How do you stop others from copying your tech?" He answered, "Our moat isn't our tech. It's our people and our culture of free exploration." So even though OpenAI doesn't open source everything, it also doesn't rely on hoarding secrets. That's the spirit of Silicon Valley. Elon Musk famously opened up many of Tesla's patents, benefiting the entire EV industry. He once said, "You can copy my existing tech, but you don't know what I'm building next." True competitiveness lies in continuous innovation, not in sitting on a few key secrets. And continuous innovation requires free-flowing communication. That's it for today's content. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.
If you feel there is value in this, please like, subscribe to this channel, and leave your thoughts or suggestions in the comments section. Let's grow together and read more good books.